order. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First up, we have the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of February 12th, 2024.
I move to approve.
I'll second it.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next up, we have approval of general fund vouchers 81091 through 81170 and wire transfers 202-40344 through 2024-0389.
I move to approve the general fund vouchers and wire transfers as stated.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next up, we have public comments. We have limited public. Do they have comments? No. All right. On to Spotlight of Education. Marcy, you want to talk about the library grant?
Yes. So, hello. My name is Marcy Meyer. I'm the librarian here for the district. Mr. Peterson thought it'd be cool to let you know of a grant that we just received through the library. So we have a really great museum uptown, and I went in it this summer with my kids, and I said, you know what, people don't get to see this stuff. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could have a traveling museum? And so I just thought about it, like, what would it take to do that? I would need a locking display case, I need this, I need that, and it just swirled around my head, you know, for a couple years actually. So our state representative for libraries sent out a grant opportunity through Wills. They support libraries, and it was a $5,000 grant. Super easy. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try it. So they just wanted to see what people could do. I got the $5,000 grant from Wills in September. I was able to purchase some locking display cases. If you've been in the library, you'll see a big one, 4x4 or 4x2, and then there's a new one on one. We actually have 3 in the high school library here. The purpose was initially to move them around, you know, to take the display and bring it to the hardware store or take it to the library, but the displays are a lot heavier than I imagined, so they will be stationary in there. At the elementary, we also have some already displays over there, display cases, so we kind of hijacked one of those and started a little display over there too. I've shared with you an article that was in the Clear Lake Chronicle this past month, kind of describing what the process is. My vision for the process was to not only bring the articles into our school so kids and staff can see them, but to have the students interact with the displays. So working with Mr. Crawford, Mrs. Rubel to say, what are you teaching this month? What would be helpful? I really want the students to interact with it. Right now we have an independent study student, Tyler Press, and he's kind of spearheading it. He's researching the items, he's identifying them, going up to the museum with Mrs. Crest, who also is working with him, myself, and Mr. Weiss. We were just up there the other day looking for the next display, which he had a really good idea. He wants to do military hats. So he went through, looked at the hats he wants to pick. He's going to do the research back here, and then when we're ready to switch it out, he'll bring the hats back. He has a really cool one in the corner that says upcoming display, and there's a hat in there. So really cool to bring his love of history into the project. My hope for the future is that we use our TVs that are in the gym and the hallways to put up some historical facts up there as well, and then share with our students that way. So that is our grant that we got for the library. Really excited about it. We also want to help the museum keep track of all their items. You know, just put it in a spreadsheet, a picture of what it is, and the research that Tyler is doing right now, put that in a spreadsheet so that they can use it as well. Hope for the future is to share them, you know, get the community more involved, say, hey, I have this piece of artifact, would you like that? We've already had some. We have a farming display up right now. The DeBoer family has brought some items in to share. The Crest family has shared some as well. it's really cool to see what people have. And then a big hope would be that it would be a huge historical society share, kind of like our CISA band goes around, we could share things that way. So really cool thing that we have going on, and it's just going to keep continually changing based on what we have, what we get, and the curriculum of the class. And then on the back of that one, I just wanted to mention that the library also received an Operation Roundup grant from the Pope Burnett. And we were able to purchase 2 new library chairs in there. The kids really like them. Really good for the kids to have a different seating spot. And then the Clear Lake track team also got a $1,000 grant from the same place. And we purchased 4 stationary bikes that will be used out on the track for students to warm up, cool down. If they have an injury, they can bike out there instead of being unsupervised in the school. So we're really excited about that as well. And we just want to publicly thank all of those organizations for their support.
I didn't know there were outdoor stationary bikes until you applied for that grant. That's pretty
They're
cool.
not. They're indoor.
Well, they're gonna.
I don't
okay.
think they
they're gonna be
warranty
indoor,
outdoor bikes,
Okay.
but we're planning to pull them out during nice days, but keep them in
Keep 'em in the shed.
concession stand.
Yeah.
And then there are waterproof covers you can get. But yeah, so we're excited.
That's great.
Thank you.
That museum that we have is a real treasure, and it's just a way to get it. So many kids maybe don't ever access it. Just a way to get it in front of them and pique their interest to maybe go over there and learn more. So.
Well, I even see that, maybe that's a way to, with some of the vision element study teams, to link to some businesses too. Like I'm looking at this old stuff, students like to our office to learn what fiber is, how to do that technology and what that looks like and what a potential path would be there. So there's ways to link with businesses, AFP or the different things too.
And art, I was too open could display some really cool art in here, or local artists. So it's going to be ever changing, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. Good job.
Yeah. Thanks for the work.
Way to go above and beyond. And when I went to that school board deal too, it's really neat to actually connect careers. There's going to be, looking at history, you're connecting history and careers and all that to the educational piece, and that's awesome. Way to go.
Thank you.
You go, Greg.
I guess next item of business then will be approval of the hires.
Yeah.
Back up.
Resignations, G6 first.
6, resignations. We do have one resignation, a coach. So we have a letter of resignation from Juliana Rosine, head volleyball coach. So she has accepted the opportunity to be the head coach at New Richmond High School. So she works in New Richmond, and anyway, so she's going to continue to work with the program through the spring league season and kind of assist and oversee that, and then that will be she'll be moving on. So,
all right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resignations. Second.
And properly moved and seconded to approve the resignation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Now the approval of the hires.
and we don't have any on there. I just had a standing agenda item, but we don't have any new hires.
Okay. Next item of business then is approval of the district library plan.
Okay, so we'll get Mrs. Meyer back up front and center here, and
It's all about the library now.
well, we thought we'd do a 2-for-1 tonight, so just while she's getting set up, so just some context. So the library plan is something that's a DPI requirement that's required to be done every so many years. It's gotten a little gray. It used to be 5 years, 3 years, whatever, but it's every so many years the DPI requires every district to have submit a new library plan, and basically, and she'll outline, but it's setting goals, multi-year goals, and kind of just giving an overview and explanation of what the library program offers for resources and things like that. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Meyer.
Yeah, it's actually changed to be a district technology plan that we used to have to write together with the library was in there. But now it's more towards the library. So I was back here in 2020. That's when it was last approved. So it's pretty much the same layout. We just have changed some of our goals because we met our others. Our goal this year would be to work on the personalized professional learning area and the budget and resources area. So this is our circle of future ready librarians, just kind of the pieces of the pie that we do in our job. So each wedge has a section. Personalized professional learning, so that's not just what I do to learn. And here I have, I say what we do, what I do, and then we're gonna have a goal in this area. Our goal this year is, well, for the next couple of years, is to work on our professional learning for our staff. We do have a professional library for our staff that they can check out books about teaching or curriculum, items like that, and our goal is to update that. At the elementary, we're continually updating. We have a lot more hands-on little kid stuff over there. High school, not so much, but I see the teachers are purchasing it on their own and reading it that way. But our goal is to update that professional library for all staff to have access to high-quality professional materials. We also want to really work on sharing our databases that we have. We spend a lot of money on databases which we feel are important, but sometimes it's overwhelming for staff to figure out which one would work for which subject or topic they're working on. More monthly training opportunities on those resources, so whether in person or video tutorials, and then monthly newsletters for staff on educational resources. I've done this in the past, but then when it's not on a goal, it kind of falls to the behind. So that's one of our areas for growth. Another wedge is robust infrastructure. Our school is very lucky to have the infrastructure that we have. The referendum in 2014 really helped us out with connecting our schools, having monitoring, and then just to remind the school board, we do own 3 school-owned access points in the community that are located at various churches that students can pull up to and use free internet that is from our school. So that's a really cool one that I forgot about, so we added that.
That was a COVID edition that we put out there, so it remained.
And the students' computers will automatically log into our network, and it will have that same filtering software.
So which churches are those at?
The church, I think the church in Forest,
Yeah.
Reeve, and
Is it Mole, maybe?
I'm not sure.
We tried to go kind of different directions.
Yes.
I think that might be the one. I can't recall.
And I was going to double check, and I can put that on there if you would like that. So.
I was just thanks.
Yeah. Another wedge, a big wedge that we spend a lot of time on in the library is our budget and resources. Our budget, everybody can have one of those. Our budget comes from the Board of Public Lands. It's called Common School Funds. It is not taxpayer money like other budgets from the school. They actually loan out money, and the money they get back in interest is what they share with the school libraries. For 90% of Wisconsin school libraries, that is their entire budget. So a lot of schools do not have any other funding except for this Common School Fund. Our budget last year was around $60,000, which is a blessing. And a curse sometimes because you don't know what to spend. There are rules to what we can buy with our money. We can buy books for checkout. We can buy those professional books. We can buy databases. We can buy makerspace items. But we can't buy things like furniture or bookcases. So there is rules limiting what we can spend that on. I have broke down our budget. Last year we spent about 45% of our budget on books, DVDs, and professional materials, 25% on technology, 19% on databases that would be on our school website, 5% is spent on our hosting service, which is how we look our card catalog and check in and out, and then less than 5% is spent on things to support the curriculum, like puzzles or chessboards, things like that. On the left here, I do have a list of all of the items that we purchased for our school website. I feel that 24/7 access for our students and staff is really important. COVID kind of brought that to light to everybody, but it was something that if you're not here and the doors are locked, how am I going to read or how am I going to learn? So everybody should have access. We have a goal in this area for the next couple of years is to have a video streaming service. We have this year applied to 2 additional ones. Swank, it is a movie service that has educational movies as well as fun movies, so for like quarterly awards or things like that. And then Avon is more of a nonfiction database, has lots of PBS, 60 Minutes, things like that, documentaries. Those are doing well, but with that first goal of giving more training to our staff, you know, the opening of those was kind of rough, trying to figure out how to log in, and so we'll keep working on that, but we're really excited to have those available to our staff 24/7. We're also working on updating our nonfiction section. Since I've been here, we have gone from the 1950s to the 2000s, so I'm pretty proud of that. But now we're just working on updating more, having more quality versus quantity. Kids do judge a book by its cover, so getting some good updated items that are in there, and replacing worn out copies of well-loved books. You say, oh, it'll do. Well, we have a very healthy budget, so we're really working hard on replacing you know, our Fly Guys or our Hunger Games or anything that's been, you know, starting to rip or tear. So, and then we'll just hand those out to kids. So they're still getting them. And then relabeling the book sections. Jody Kress did an amazing job of genrifying the high school library, so she put all the fiction books into categories so the kids can look that way if they like a certain type of book. At the elementary, just labeling the shelves better and making more book baskets. So that is a big goal for us there. Community partnerships, this is just a wedge that is on there showing how librarians work with the community. I did add our new grant that we have on there, speaking that we are going to be working with our museum, the students and staff to do that. So, data privacy, I just have a little blurb on there about, you know, we do teach digital citizenship in the library, pre-K through 6th grade. They get lessons at least monthly. It gets heavier the older they are, just because they're using technology more. So the lessons for the junior kindergarten are more through books, talking about that, but then we do use Common Sense Media for a lot of their pre-made lessons that we can change to suit our students. Just a couple wedges there of collaborative leadership, how I work with other librarians, other teachers, how I'm on committees in the school. Use of space and time was a previous goal in our district, and we can say that we accomplished it. I'm pretty excited. It does talk about space, time, so we have one full-time librarian, 2 part-time paras. They split their time between tech and food service. So we are pretty lucky to have that. Our doors are not locked anymore. The kids can go in, they can check out books, they can ask for help, so I'm really excited about that. At the elementary, we added a maker space. An old computer lab got converted into a very nice maker space / piano lesson room. So the kids, here's just a picture of them. They made those little melty perler bead things. So they're able to do robotics down there, coding, art, lots of different things. Another computer lab that was attached to the library has been turned into a picture book area. We are very blessed with over 16,000 books, so we need space for them. The kids love it. There's puppets in there. They can go in there, they can read quietly, they can check out, and I can still see them with all the windows that we have. And then the high school. So it was really cool. We were standing in this space wondering how we were going to get a bookshelf for this space and a counter for this space, and we actually just flip-flopped them. We took the counter for the elementary, brought it to the high school bookshelves went to the elementary. So we were able to do that pretty budget-friendly. The school did purchase some new stools and a couple additional cubbies, so I think we did rather well for the budget that we had. The kids really enjoy the high top counter space at the high school. Both spaces were able to get a touchscreen television as well. So that, we're really excited about that. The kids really love both of the spaces and they're used quite frequently. Curriculum and instruction, it just talks about what I teach, how I work with teachers to give them the resources. And then the center of the wheel is the kids. We do this for the kids. So, and then if you wanted any information on future-ready librarians, it's right there. So, and then if you wanted to look at our website, the kids use it quite frequently. At the elementary, they're trained to use it. A lot of our paid resources on there. I'm just going to show you the elementary really quick. They know how to get there. They know how to log in. Lots of resources. They can search Destiny. This is where our main resources are for our elementary students. They are divided up into their categories. So ebooks are first. Coding, we do spend the month of December working on coding at the elementary school. Games, some of these are paid for, some of them are not. Research, Pebble Go was a new addition last year. The lower elementary really likes that. I train the kids on Britannica as well. And so there's just some more resources. So really a great place for the kids to find some real accurate information. Any questions?
You're a busy person, Marcy.
Good job.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Marcy for all her work on the plan. I know Mrs. Creston contributed to that as well, and so yeah, well done.
What's your password?
I think we do need an approval, a motion of approval.
I will entertain a motion then.
I move to approve the district library plan.
I'll second it.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the district plan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Then, the next item of business then is the review of the January
One more.
approval of the new civics textbooks.
Okay, so this is for the high school civics course, looking for updated books. So we've got Mr. Crawford here, our civics teacher, teaches the class, I should say, social studies teacher. And I think I'll turn it right over to Mr. Crawford, right? Yep, sure.
Just a little bit of a background and some context. In December 2021, we asked the board for approval to have civics be a required course here at Clear Lake as opposed to being an elective, which we currently offer, but we sporadically teach myself. And that's coming down the pipe anyway. The state of Wisconsin, it's just a matter of time until that becomes a state requirement, so we figured we'd just get ahead of it. And starting with this year's sophomores, the class of 2026, they will be required, the first graduating class from here, that'll be required for it. So it was time then in the last year to start looking at resources because we're going to start teaching it this next fall. And then this year's sophomores will need to take it at some point in the next 2 years. And then every subsequent year from here on out, it'll just be part of the schedule. So looking for textbooks and resources for the course. First thing I did, reach out to CISA 11. They kind of steered me in a couple different directions. Attended a couple workshops up there that were civics based. I asked fellow teachers that I know in the area also kind of what they do for their civics classes that they teach, and kind of got steered in the right direction. Got a list from CISA of respective textbooks that are out there, and from there kind of narrowed it down to 3 that I felt I could work with, and then from there just basically had to decide, from that, all these books are good, which one do I want? And I picked one that's kind of been one of the most widely used, most well-known in the last couple decades, called Magruder's American Government. I like how that aligns with what I want to do with the class. There's kind of a skeleton outline from Wisconsin DPI that has 5 themes of what your class would look like. Basically say these are recommended areas to teach. I feel like it's, when we require this is probably what it will look like, so I kind of was based off of that. And this book definitely follows those themes. It's been one of the most widely used ones in the country. I asked for data from them with the rep that I've been working with, like, what does that mean? What does the most widely used mean? How many schools use it and how many texts are sold? But I could not get that data out of them. They did not want to share that with me, unfortunately. But they did say that it is their longest running textbook. This edition has been published for the last 20 years, and this is just the most recent version of it. I also contacted a teacher I know at Ellsworth High School, and they've been using this specific text for 10 plus years, and it all comes back to, it's a book. The book isn't going to make the lessons fun. That will be me, and I will use it as an outline, base what I'm going to be teaching, but using what's in there more for me than giving it to the kids and say, read this, because it's an 8-pound monster and it's 900 pages, and that only gets you so far. So I guess that's what I'm looking for. If if you have questions on that tonight, I'm hoping that we can get it approved so that we can get the requisition done and get a copy in my hand before summer hits here, and then I can run with it. I'm hoping that I have a quote here from them. They're not cheap, but I requested a quote for 35 copies. That also buys us, in our quote, 6 years worth of digital content that I can log into and access. And I'm hoping that the ESSER funds or the grant for the civics course that we have will also be able to be something we can use for that. It doesn't cost the district a whole lot. The quote for 35 texts is $5,397 and some change. Send you the quote. Do you want to?
It's in their board docs. Yep.
So that's kind of the last year of looking and where I'm at, and I can certainly go into more detail if you have any questions, or if you want to look at the thing I brought up.
Greg's gonna read it.
Yeah.
All for us.
Yes.
As president.
Out loud.
No, not that. No, sounds good.
Yeah, how can we, I mean, if you recommend it, Nick, you being such a fun guy and all, sounds like a winner to me. Does
You'll bring it to life.
I think it'll work.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's relatively inexpensive, honestly. Relatively, when you talk about textbook costs nowadays, it's a standalone course. So, you know, one classroom set. And we are trying to buy as many textbooks as we can this year, and because we are able to use ESSER funds for this. So yeah, so it's a good fit.
Sounds all good to me. I'll entertain a motion then.
I move to approve the new civics books.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve all new civics textbooks. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Nick. The next item of business then is our review of the January pupil count.
Okay, I can take this one. So this was, you know, normally we do this in February, but with February's meeting being really long, we've tried to go through and see what could we possibly push off, because there's really no requirement for timeliness in it. So this was pushed back from the February meeting. So honestly, when I had to look back at this today, it's been so long since we did. It was January 12th when we did the count date, so we're talking 2 months ago. You know, we do it in September, we do it in January. The first document there, just remember this first document, this spreadsheet looking one, that is the head count. So that is actual heads, you know, actual students in seats, right? So that's actual bodies, okay? And then that's not the same as our student count. So our pupil count is where you take all of the open enrolled in, and you subtract them out, and you take all the open enrolled out, and you add them in, because those are technically, so it counts your resident school districts, and then there's money that's exchanged. So that's why, again, it's kind of confusing, because the student count is different than the actual head count that's actually in seats. So the second document there is the actual. This is the actual pupil count. Or enrollment count that goes to the DPI. So this takes into account, this counts the students who live in Clear Lake but go to school elsewhere. It does not count the kids who live elsewhere and go to school in Clear Lake, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but we actually get funded by our resident districts, and then we pay other districts for kids who are going elsewhere, and then we get paid for kids who come to our district from theirs. So we did have just an anomaly. I mean, we have our count is 12 less than was September, and when we do this as a team, so it's Mrs. Lavery, Mrs. Roll, Mrs. Blanchard, myself. We sit around this table on the screen and we go through and we have all got our data, and we're like, wait a minute, is that right? Well, we went through. It's just it was just kids that have moved away, just throughout the year, and so it's just kind of an unusual year. We have other years where we might have 10 kids move in throughout it. So it's not a trend, I don't think, anything. I think it's just sort of a unusual thing. We might go back 12 more by the end of the school year. So we looked at all the different cases, and they were simply students who just moved.
Sell your house yet?
Yep.
Kids moving in?
I don't think they have any school-age kids. I'm very, very sad to say. So, anyway, so there's no approval needed, but it's always a nice thing to just review and look at. So, and again, it's a team effort, and I think we're getting more efficient at it every time we do it. So, appreciate all the work that goes into it.
All right, next item of business then is the discussion of athletic conference affiliation and related public listening session on Tuesday, March 26th.
Okay, so as we heard at the last meeting, we talked about that Clear Lake has been invited to join the Dunn St. Croix Athletic Conference, and I'm just going to kind of share a lot of the same information. So Dunn St. Croix is losing a member. So Elk Mound High School is leaving the Dunn St. Croix for the Clover Belt. They have had a pretty large increase in enrollment, and they are kind of the outlier now as far as being bigger in that conference than the other schools. And so it kind of makes sense for them and for the Clover Belt. So they are moving. They did this fast track process where if each conference votes unanimously, then it happens in what's called the fast track process, which means in 2 years is when the switch will happen. So Elk Mound will be 2 years. They'll be switching to the Clover Belt. So the Dunn St. Croix is looking for another member because now they are down or are short one. So they had reached out to a couple of different districts, I'm told. We were one of them, informally at first, and just to kind of gauge interest. And so we had discussions internally, and the more we started to look at it, we said, well, this is definitely something we should consider. No decision, but just, let's look into this more. And so that's what led to, the attachment I have on here, which has some data about enrollments, and it has data on travel distances. It also has just kind of internal stakeholders kind of brainstormed what are some pros and cons of remaining in the Lakeland Conference, what are some pros and cons if we were to switch conferences. And then we talked about this at the last meeting, and the board wisely mentioned, having a public listening session, and so very happy to do that. And I know I had initially thrown out the date of March 19th, I think, after our last email. Mr. Melber can't be here that night, so we're going to go for Tuesday, March 26th. And I think 6:30 seems to be a decent time, like kind of after the dinner hour, but not too late. So that's a little different date than I initially told you. That would allow myself, Mr. Melberg, Mr. Sargent to all be there. And then, so I'll publicize that starting probably next week. That'll be a good time. We'll get through the hoopla of this week, I think, first, and then get that out there. And again, kind of shared this last time. Our goal was to be very transparent in this process with both the Dunn St. Croix Conference and the Lakeland Conference. So, I think my goal was to have the board hear it from me before you heard it from somewhere else. My goal was to have the Lakeland superintendents hear it from me before they heard it from somewhere else. And so I think that's been accomplished pretty well. And we've had discussions at the Lakeland Conference superintendents meetings. We meet monthly, but it's been difficult. December we had a low turnout. January where there was no meeting with the state convention. February I was not able to be there, but we did put it on the agenda, and they had a brief discussion about it then. So we wanted to make sure that there's an opportunity for people to know about it, ask questions. I've had some really good individual conversations with some of those Lakeland superintendents, to understand the reasoning why we would consider it. I was very clear that, number one, there's certainly been no decision made by us internally, and that, number two, I communicated here last time that it's not all our decision. So what the Dunn St. Croix would like to have happen is that fast track process. So that's where each conference would vote unanimously to say, yep, we think this makes sense. Dunn St. Croix says, yep, we would like Clear Lake. Lakeland says, yep, we would release Clear Lake to join. And so, that's certainly a political process and a lot of conversations and a lot that goes into that. And certainly, I've told people that, this is not something to take lightly. I certainly don't take it lightly as a kid who grew up in Clear Lake and went to school here. The Lakeland Conference, there's a long historical tie there. So it's not something to take lightly, and make sure there's a lot of due respect to all parties, all the different schools, the different conferences, and also internally with our people here. So that's just kind of some of the background conversations that have been had. So I think that discussion here at the board level, I think conversation at the community level, the listening session, conversations internally, the individual conversations I've had with people have generally been, start out with some kind of curiosity. Well, why would we do that? Some really good questions, thoughtful questions, and then some kind of, oh, okay, I can see why maybe that, might be a decent idea. So that's kind of how most of the conversations I've had have gone, and I don't know if you've all had an opportunity to have any of those conversations or people have brought it up. So I haven't run into anybody with a lot of opposition. I also haven't had people running to the door saying, yes, we got to do this, we got to do this. So I think people have been pretty thoughtful about it. So
Well, we got kids in the junior high, and they would love more competition. I know that.
Yeah.
And that's what I've heard from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I want to get to that document and talk about some of I think tonight we can maybe talk a little bit more about some of those reasons why we are considering it. So I think that if we go to that, down that road where we think this is the right thing for Clear Lake students, kind of put a tentative timeline. There's a March 19th Lakeland Superintendent's meeting to have additional discussion there. And then we have our next board meeting on April 8th. And if things, after the public meeting and the Lakeland meeting, I think then that might be the opportunity where we would have a discussion here where the board would weigh in and vote. I wouldn't want to proceed without our board, being supportive of that or wanting that to happen if that's the way it goes, or not wanting to do that. So, and then if that were to proceed from there, then April 16th there is a Lakeland Superintendent's meeting, where at that point, if we were going to ask to leave, that would be the time that would happen, where they would vote. So, anyway. That would be for the fast track process. That would require that unanimous vote at both conferences. Now, if it's turned down by I know it won't be by the Dunn St. Croix, but if it was turned down by the Lakeland, we could still pursue it. If we decide, hey, this is really the right thing for Clear Lake, we could still pursue it. Then it would just be more of a 3 or 4 year process that would happen. So, those are all the factors to consider. So, there's been a lot of conversations, a lot of background, just kind of a lot of networking, and just communicating, I guess, with people on this. So,
is there a reason that fast track is 2 years?
Yeah, because schedules are made 2 years out.
Okay.
Mr. Melberg, you're a football official, so what do you have?
2 years. Sorry, I've got my schedule for 2 years. From
2 years out.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
The conference schedule.
Yeah, it's
basketball. 2 years out.
Yeah. It's yeah.
It's
Fast.
just when
2 years is fast.
when you hear fast, 2
Yeah.
years is usually not fast.
And it's an opportunity for everybody to redo schedules, and that's a big undertaking. So, and if we people have asked, well, why would we consider this? I think that Matt pointed out one of the reasons. More consistent games at the JV level and the junior high level. As several of the Lakeland schools have gotten smaller and smaller. Many of them don't have a junior high team. They don't have a JV team. We actually, in a couple of our sports, volleyball, we've often got a C squad. Boys basketball, we've often had a C squad. And you definitely don't see too many of those in the Lakeland. Maybe Unity or Grantsburg might sometimes.
More consistent members in wrestling.
More consistent, yeah. Wrestling, there's definitely more dual meets that would occur in the Dunn St. Croix, so it'd be definitely more beneficial for wrestling conference meets. I have talked to Coach Wood about that too, and from his initial response, he seemed very favorable to that idea too. It's also geographically, it makes a lot of sense. We've got so the Dunn St. Croix members, just to make it clear, so it's Glenwood City, Boyceville, Colfax, Spring Valley, Elmwood, Plum City, and then the two further ones away are Mondovi and Durand. And so those two are more outliers in terms of distance and in terms of size, similar to like in our conference right now, we've got Unity and Grantsburg are kind of those bigger schools that are just kind of significantly bigger than their neighbors. But anyway, we got some kind of natural, I'd say natural positive rivalries with some of our next door neighbors like Glenwood and Boyceville. We play them now in a lot of sports already. So I think that's natural. I think the travel distances is pretty appealing, as the Lakeland has gotten bigger and bigger. We've that old core Lakeland, like I say, go back way back 30 years ago when some of us were maybe in school, and it's really expanded, now to, trips to Grantsburg and Webster and, more so that way that have done, and, Siren and Northwood and, Flam. It's such a far-reaching conference, and it's not that we go to all those schools for many sports, but we definitely have trended more with the Western schools, and it's definitely more travel. So that's another thing.
I'd also say, when it comes to rivalries too, a lot of our clubs play those same teams down south too. And
Yeah.
So that would kind of add to that rivalry, I think.
Yeah. That was one thing that Dunn St. Croix said to us, is they felt like, that Clear Lake was really a nice fit size-wise, culturally, demographically, just very similar to some of those other schools. We do play a lot of youth sports tournaments and junior high sports against a lot of those schools already, so I think it would be not really a big adjustment, and certainly we've been there for football now for, I think it's been 4 years at least. So there's already some connections there. There's some stability there. And it's not just athletics. The music conference also is a consideration. When we do solo and ensemble and large group festival, I think they take a similar approach to the Lakeland as well. And then they're in CISA 11 with us, so there's a lot of existing relationships with principals and superintendents and athletic directors already there. So it would be, I'd say I as a superintendent have a lot of familiarity with the superintendents that would be there. And in some cases, and it's not knocking anybody, but like probably closer relationship than with some of the far eastern conference schools in the Lakeland right now that we just don't see very often. So our enrollment is going to take a dip here in a few years. We've got these smaller classes coming through the elementary, so one of the things that we've looked into and thought about is, okay, as our enrollment dips down, right now we're kind of right in the median level of the Dunn St. Croix. We would trend down to be one of the smaller schools in that conference. So that could be a reason to say, well, we want to think about this, or a hesitation maybe. Can we maintain competitiveness while doing that? But we've also, Mrs. Blanchard did a great job. She pulled some information and numbers as far as the number of students that we have participating in sports, going down even into 5th, 6th grade in some of them. And, our enrollment numbers go down, but we still have fairly strong participation among those grades. So, there's somewhat of a belief that we could continue to remain competitive even if we were one of the smaller. If we get through this dip in enrollment before it goes up again in the future, that I believe will happen, we would still remain competitive. And enrollment is the big driver for football, right? I mean, you need numbers to have football. You got 30, 40 kids on a team. So the thing to remind people is football is its own separate process. So football conference realignment happens completely independent, driven by the WIA. Every 2 years, they look at enrollments and they reshuffle football conferences based on enrollment. So making this move is not, football is its own deal. So that's something too that would have been a hesitation for me, I think, but I think that helps there. So, with the Lakeland Conference, history and tradition. Certainly, we've been a Lakeland Conference member. I think I assume since it's been a conference. I think our enrollment tends to be a little bit more on the bigger side. Certainly, we've got tons of traditional rivalries with our neighbors in the Lakeland, and some of our other. Shell Lake is not real close by, but they're a great rival historically. They're just one example. One of the things that in the past has been nice is there's so many schools in the Lakeland. It's grown to 19, 23 schools. We can realign internally and I've seen us do this as I've been here long enough, where football or basketball, baseball, whatever, we've gone from east and west to east central and west to large and small and all these different iterations, and we've been able to realign internally pretty well because of that, which is a nice thing without involving the WIA. You know, and obviously we've got longstanding, you know, relationships in the conference. I think the flip side of that has been our large size. Sometimes our identity is a little bit fragmented. You know, it's like the Lakeland Conference doesn't always have a real unified identity because we've got schools as far as Winter to Grantsburg to Clear Lake to Northwood. You know, it's a very widespread. We've got schools as small as in the 70s and schools 300 kids. So it's you know, the diversity of that is nice in some ways, but at some point it kind of gets to be a challenge too. So anyway, so that's a lot of information. I wanted to just kind of publicly be able to talk about some of the issues on there. We intend to share this out there publicly before that meeting so people can kind of look at it, digest it, come with better questions. But any other comments or questions, I guess?
Curiosity, what was the other school that they approached?
I don't think I want to say. Okay. I'd rather not say in this situation, I guess, just out of respect for them, because I don't know whether they're considering it or not, and I wouldn't want to get rumors out there out of respect for them. Any questions people have? I know, like I said, I talked a lot, so.
No, good. Thank you.
Well, we'll make it public. We'll have our listening event, and we'll go from there then.
Okay. And like I said, don't forget you've got those links on the bottom, and you can dig into those yourself with the enrollments and travel distances and all that. It's something to consider. And again, we'll get this out publicly.
Will you share all those documents at the meeting?
Yeah, I want to put them out ahead of time and then have them there too. Yep.
All right, any other questions on the athletic conference affiliation? Seeing none, then we'll move on to CISA 11 shared services contract.
Okay, so every year this is our annual update of our CISA 11 contract, so Cooperative Educational Service Agency. So there are 12 of them in Wisconsin, and these are regional entities that help give cooperative services. So an example is Clear Lake does not have a need to employ, let's say, a hearing impaired teacher or a visual impaired teacher, because we have so few students that have that disability that it would not make sense for us to employ somebody full-time. So CISA offers shared services. They can employ a hearing impaired teacher, for example, that can service multiple schools, and we buy into that contract. So that's just one example of a service. If you click into the contract itself, you can scroll through and see some of the services that we get. So cooperative bidding and purchasing, that allows us to, we worked as a big cooperative, we get better pricing. Delivery service, so we actually have a van that goes around once a week and delivers items from school to school. That's actually used a ton. Comprehensive consulting and networking services, that's like our monthly curriculum coordinator meetings, district assessment coordinator meetings, principal meetings, things like that. The educational driven things. The consulting days, so I'll come back to that. Okay, that's a whole other topic, so come back to that. Early Learning Consortium, for example, that allows us to send people up to monthly meetings where early learning, early childhood specialists get together and share expertise and knowledge. So each one of these programs that we choose to buy into, provides a benefit to our district. So the ones that have multiple prices there, and I have the one circled, that's based on enrollment size, what we get out of that. Like, for example, the Special Education Instructional Media Center. So we are allowed to loan items from that special ed resource, and we use it a ton. So, like, I know last year being new, I kind of went around and asked different people, okay, is this something that you use a lot? And I know when I asked Mrs. Powers, she said, yes. She said, you can never take that away from me. She said, so, these are things that are pretty valuable. Title I, II, and III, so that's what they do, is they actually help administer that grant for us. It's very complicated federal funding stuff, so they assist us in administering the grant properly. So you can see some of the other ones are just based on if you use them, you get billed.
Or grant development services.
Grant development, where are you looking at? Which one?
870.
First page, second page?
First page.
That is, I think you can pay them to, I mean, I can look into that more, but I'm sure it's you pay them to help you write specific grants. And it's you're paying them a per day fee to say, all right, we want to apply for this grant. Will you basically do the actual writing of it for us? So at $1,100 per day. Any questions on what you see on there? I just had a little bit of data. So I go back to the consultant number of days. So the past 2 years, we've bought a really large number of consultant days. We used to buy like 4 per year. The last 2 years, we bought 24, which is a lot. And we've used ESSER money to pay for it. So we're scaling that back based upon just talking as an admin team. We don't feel like we have as many needs. Like we did like a major like shot in the arm here the last 2 years. And we're still want to use those consultants a fair amount, but we don't need as many days. So we're asking for 12 days is what we're putting in the contract. So you can see if you go back to the agenda item and my notes in there, just comparing last year's cost to this year's. So the services costs goes up with inflation, a few $1,000s. Consultants, we paid fair amount of money. We paid $24,000 of ESSER money for consultant work last year, which is a significant investment, which is great. If we cut that back, that cuts that down to $13,000, and so that is, kind of offsets some of the other increases. So it's a net decrease overall. So, any questions about anything in there?
All right, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the CESA 11 shared services contract for 2024-2025.
Second?
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the CESA 11 shared service contract. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of 66.0301 shared course agreement.
So for the last few years, I'm guessing maybe about 5 years, the Clayton, Turtle Lake, Prairie Farm, and Clear Lake school districts formed a cooperative group to be able to share students and classes. So a student from Clear Lake, say, could sign up and take a class that's offered by Clayton or Prairie Farm, and vice versa. So we've had this agreement in place for a while. So this is a renewal of that. I meet with those superintendents about 4 times a year, and it was raised this year, so we have not used it really much at all. And the problem is the scheduling, the logistics of it. And so we had the conversation, do we want to continue to have this since we're not really able to use it very well? And what we came around to is like, yeah, let's keep it, because even if we don't use it a lot, it's nice to keep it and have the agreement in place rather than to let it slide and then 3 years from now try to resurrect it, or lo and behold, it's probably 2 or 3 different superintendents of the 4. So we just agreed, it's a good thing to keep in place. It shows our commitment to cooperating with each other, working together, and so we would like to continue the course agreement. So I would recommend approval.
Do the other schools use it more frequently, Chris?
Not really. Not much.
Okay. Well, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the shared course agreement.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the shared course agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. Next item of business is the approval of shared nursing services agreement.
Okay, so this is, we're in our first year, we've had a shared agreement between Turtle Lake, Clayton, and Clear Lake to share nursing services. So we talked about this last year. We've been in a state of, we were in a state of flux after the Polk County nursing services kind of pulled back a few years ago, and then we went through COVID, and then we were kind of struggling with where we could pick up professional nursing services. So we entered into this agreement to join with Turtle Lake and Clayton, who are sharing a nurse, and so we contract for 22 days a year, or at about 2.5 days per month. and we are completing our first year of it, and Kaylee Mateski has served as our school nurse, sharing between, and we'd like to continue that going forward. It's nice to have that, great to have that resource as we need it.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the shared nursing services agreement. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business will be the discussion of CISA 11 Joint Board Superintendent Spring Meeting, April 4th.
Okay, so I don't know that any of us attended last year. I didn't attend, but they have a meeting every year. They invite board members and administrators to come. I went to it as a principal one time, I know, years ago, but this year, the speaker that's presenting, his name is Jim Morgan. I've heard him speak at a WASDA conference, and really thought, he was one of the more memorable ones that I've heard in a while. I really appreciated his message, and his delivery was just engaging. But he talks about some of the demographics and population changes that have to do with the changing workforce, and he does it with a Wisconsin focus, and he shows a lot of data and a lot of trends, and I found it to be really interesting. On the steering committee for the PAC, and we had brought this speaker up, and looked at his presentation and really thought, wow, this could be a great speaker for board members who are community members, business people, from the community, to see what these trends mean, not just for schools, but all industries. And so anyway, I think I plan to go. I think it'll be an engaging speaker. So it's dinner. It's a nice dinner, and then presentation for hour and a half. So you can look at your calendars and let me know maybe over the next few weeks. I can send out an email reminder, and we can get a school van and travel up together if we want to, the people that want to go, or some people, if it makes more sense, to just drive themselves, whatever you want to do. But we just need to RSVP by the end of March, by March 27th. So think about it, look it over, and I can email, you can let me know.
Sounds good. Thanks for sharing that with us, Chris. Next item of business is the discussion of the school board election, April 2nd.
Okay, so just a reminder, we've got our board election Tuesday, April 2nd, and we've got 2 positions open. We've got 2 incumbent candidates running, Nettie and Christy. And then the election will happen on the 2nd, and then by statute, the newly elected members need to sign the oath of office by April 22nd, but we'll have a meeting between the election and April 22nd. So typically what we've been able to do is do the swearing in portion at a meeting and sign that. And then after that, the May meeting is where the board reorganization meeting happens. So just a reminder of that timeline, a reminder to people to get out and vote. So.
Yeah, good luck with your campaigns, people. Next item of business is the discussion of election canvass committee timeline.
Okay, so and just a reminder, part of the process is after the votes are cast, the Board of Canvassers meets and certifies the election, and tentatively I'm thinking that we'll meet on Thursday, April 4th. We notice the meeting ahead of time, just like we do for a board meeting. We need to have 2 qualified electors, so we usually find some citizens that live in the school district, often that live or that work in the district, some people here, and then and also the clerk. But if the clerk is a candidate, which is the case this year, then we'll get another member to serve in lieu of the clerk. So if anybody on the board would like to, it doesn't have to be a board member, I don't believe, but it might be nice to have it be a board member. If somebody else would like to serve as clerk, we can talk about that, or we can talk about it now, or if someone wants to volunteer. Or usually it's someone who's able to be here at about 3:30 on a Thursday if you have availability to be able to do that. So,
Okay.
Matt
got
just
it,
volunteered.
Matt volunteered. Okay.
Thanks, Matt. All right. The next item of business are superintendent notes. Mr. Christopher Peterson.
Okay, so I usually just kind of look at my, all the things that have been going on in school, and there's a lot going on right now. So a lot to talk about in terms of this time of year with some of our student activities. So first off, we had our wrestling season finish off with 4 of our wrestlers making it to the individual state tournament. So we had Trevor Gilbertson, we had Caden Paulson participate, and then we had Tyler Sunday got there and was finished 4th place, and he is a 4-time place winner. So he placed all 4 years that he managed to go to the state tournament, all 4 years of high school. And then we also had some history with Bryn Ellison being our first female wrestler to qualify for the state tournament as well. So that was exciting. Our boys basketball team finished up their season. They're young team with a lot of inexperience this year, and they had a strong finish. They weren't able to win their playoff game, but they had made a good showing. The last week we had our student-to-student group led by Mrs. Kaler. They did some recognition of mental health awareness, and they called it Chill Week, and they talked every day. There was like a daily message that was shared out that teachers could then share with students, or maybe it was a video clip, but it talked about different mental health topics or awareness or ways to provide students strategies to de-stress or to talk about, putting things in perspective, and then mixed in a lot of other like fun activities. One example was a couple of days we had music during passing time instead of bells, so that was just one example. So also Mrs. Kaler, the National Honor Society students hosted a blood drive last week at the high school, so that was very successful. At the elementary, we had Read Across America last week, and it kind of culminated on Friday afternoon. They had invited parents in for a read-in, and had parents come in and read with their students at the end of the day. 5th and 6th graders went to Trollhagen last Tuesday after having their initial trip postponed by me with the 2-hour delay with the snow that we had 2 weeks prior. So the irony there of delaying a ski trip due to snow was not lost on me for sure. I felt terrible about that.
The one and only delay.
Because the one and only delay, and it was all fine once it got plowed off, and then they couldn't go skiing because of that. I felt terrible. Just some professional development stuff. Mrs. Anderson was at the ASA, New Building Leaders Academy last week. I think it was the last session of that series this year. Junior and senior high band and choir, they've got large group festival at Clayton tomorrow evening. They've also been working on their solo and ensembles that'll be coming up later on. Of course, with activities, the big news, our girls basketball team, regional and sectional champions, will be competing at the state tournament on Friday, the 3rd time ever we've had a team qualify. It'll be the 2nd time they'll actually get to play after the 2020 group had their hearts broken with the COVID shutdown. So a lot of excitement and busyness around that, of course, lots of planning and logistics. And it's not just the team, but it's fans and fan buses, the cheer squad, the pep band, the travel, lodging activities. Figuring out insurance for vans that we're borrowing from Amory Chevrolet. Examples of things like just details that are going on. A lot of stuff. Really give a lot of credit to Mr. Sargent and Mrs. Blanchard and the athletic department, Mr. Melberg, Coach Eggert, and the 5 of us were in here yesterday for a few hours doing a lot of planning, and it's just wonderful stuff. It's crazy and busy and a little stressful. It's awesome things. Tickets and send-offs and all kinds of exciting stuff to figure out. So I also want to thank the other Mr. Vitalis with the pep band and Mrs. Mickelson and Mrs. Peterson with the cheer squad. There's a lot of planning and logistics going into it for them as well. So we did make the decision to cancel school for Friday, March 8th. Put that out in print yesterday, and it went out in a school messenger today too. And again, that's not a decision we take lightly at all. We understand that that's a change for families, particularly our elementary families that may not have a connection to the high school so much and realize, well, why would they close school? And for people to understand that when we take coaches and advisors and parents who work here who have kids on the team, who all these bus drivers is really the biggest thing. By the time we have bus drivers with the band and cheer and with fan buses and so on, it's like we just we would not be able to operate in a normal way, and then also it would put us in a position where we would have many staff members who want to go and attend, and now we'd be in a position to say, well, no, you can't go. We need, and that's not, I think from a cultural standpoint, that's not the kind of cultural response that we want to have. I think we want to celebrate the excitement of this unique and special thing and accomplishment that's going on here. So fortunately, we've really had no snow days, so we would not have to make up the day. So hopefully with the advance notice, that's people are being pretty flexible with that. So
Are we sure it went out on School Messenger after the last thing?
yeah, so I think we figured out what happened with the last thing. It was a little bit of technological stuff and maybe a little bit of a setting that I realized that I could have done a little bit differently too. But I think when we looked at it, we really was very few people that didn't get a message. But yeah, definitely was a glitch, and that whole storm caught us off guard. I mean, that was unexpected. The forecast changed a lot, and it was kind of a later than I like to get the message out too. I think it was almost getting 5:45 before it went out. So
I got one vote.
yeah, but I think we figured out what happened there. Yeah, so it took some digging. So. Yeah, other miscellaneous things that have been going on. We've had this Elementary and Secondary Education Act universal compliance monitoring going on, and Mrs. Anderson was a big part of that, and Mrs. Gillick and Mrs. Powers a little bit. That's been a big thing that's been accomplished here. Other little miscellaneous federal reports and so on. So it's been a really busy time. We do have a membership audit that we've been drawn for this year, so they go back and they audit our student counts for the January and the September dates. We avoided that last year, but we got it this year. Another thing that just came out the other day, the CDC updated the COVID-19 guidelines from the 5-day, I don't want to say mandated, but the 5-day recommendation of being out to now treating it more like other illnesses, where it's, if your fever is gone and you're feeling better, basically you would be able to, similar to a cold or a flu, treating it that way as the COVID has evolved and people have, bodies' responses have changed, and it's, just commonplace, but not as dire symptoms as when it initially came out. So that's something for us to be aware of. So, and then we'll be putting out in the Clear Lake Chronicle some information and publicizing what we did at the last meeting with the gallery walk, and when we do that, then we'll do it on the website too, to get that out there for community members to see the good work that's been done. So, but yeah, and then we got track practice actually started today for kids who aren't in girls basketball.
And it's actually open.
Yeah, and you can actually see the fields and the track this year, and so we're pretty excited that we might have a baseball game on the first scheduled day, or a track meet on the first scheduled day, or a softball game. So, and then of course we got spring break next week, and so we'll be starting that a day early with the cancellation on Friday. So I guess I think the kids are probably pretty happy about that. I don't know about all the parents, but so I think the kids are pretty pleased with it. So yeah, it's a very, very exciting week. A lot of good stuff going on.
Question related to one of your items on there, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
That snowstorm that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be our position to go to the municipalities and ask them to try to, if the snow stops in the middle of the night, like at 10 o'clock, like this storm did, to try to get the roads cleared so we can have business as usual the next day? Blackbrook wasn't the only one that I think failed in that regard. I think a lot of them, and you would probably see more of them than I do, but I'm wondering if we should just maybe ask them if they realize how important it is to not force us to do a 2-hour delay.
Yeah, and that's a conversation.
And miss the skiing trip.
Yeah, right. That was upsetting.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah. Well, and what a beautiful day to go skiing. It killed me because I thought, this is such a beautiful day. We're going to be out there
You
skiing.
think they'd kind of be chopping at the bit with this year too?
I think it caught some of them off guard a little bit too, because the forecast it was not calling for what it did, and so I don't know. I mean, our municipalities, they do a really nice job generally, and so I think it varies between the different municipalities too, what their staffing challenges and what they have for resources. But yeah, we've had conversations with them before, or Tom or I will even reach out and say, hey, what's this going to look like in the morning or whatever. So I think we have a little bit of a relationship there. I also know that they have turnover too, like we do. And
that's one of the reasons I wonder. I think that maybe that bell should be ringing. Is Blackbrook has a new person that's at the helm, and it's such a small entity that I don't know what the conversations are.
Yeah.
If they actually maybe mentor to the county for that type of thing, but
No, that's a good-
If we're not gonna say something to them, then it's gonna be business as usual, and then we're
Right.
gonna have this happen all the time. And
Yeah.
the ski trip, though, was a big deal in our household.
Mhm.
It's the people that have daycare to deal with.
Yeah,
and
that's
jobs
what
to
it-
go
yeah.
to, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, believe me, without that warning, I tried talking myself into saying it was okay, and the more I drove around, the more I said, this isn't
Yeah,
okay to put a bus
yeah,
on
they
this.
weren't
And
safe,
I
that's
was
for
surprised
sure.
how much snow there was, so, yeah.
Well, anyway, if you feel in your heart that something needs to be said, I can talk to them too if
Mhm.
you'd like me to, but
Yeah.
I think something should be said, but
Okay.
anyway.
Okay.
I don't know, does anybody know what the next item of business is?
Future agenda.
All right, future agenda items. Anybody have anything they want to see on future agenda?
Nope.
Hopefully we're talking state ball coming
Yeah.
back.
Hopefully, yeah, that'd be a nice
Yeah, right on.
spotlight on education to have in the future. So.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. We are adjourned.